Hey guys, time for another video. Thanks so much for tuning in on this one. This is part 2 of a series. Maybe we'll have a part 3, or well, definitely have a part 3 and probably even a part 4. I'm not, at this point in time, I really don't know how long this video series is gonna be, because it quite honestly depends on how much we could cover, and definitely, but I can promise you this, definitely we will have a fishing video with this, and that's most likely either part 3 or part 4. Okay, so I want to talk about the material first. Okay, now I chose craft fur for a number of reasons, and notice that also the black tip right there. Now the black tip actually kind of shortens the jig, so if it's swimming in the water, this might be more visible than the black because it kind of blends into the environment. But having said that, it also gives it kind of like a shorter profile, and when it moves, I just feel that it's a bit more visible. Now you can also add stripes on this. Adding color, if you have an all white bucktail, is as easy as getting a permanent marker and just drawing. Now it's always good to have sort of like a breaking profile, so one of the things that you could actually do with this is just give it stripes, such as this. So it kind of gives the illusion. I kind of borrowed this from fly fishing, really, and this is something that we do to just give the illusion of movement. So even if it's not moving too much, because of the stripes, it will look like it's moving. Okay, and you'll see that you don't really notice it, that much, especially when it gets wet. And when these individual fibers start to move, even if it's just sitting on the bottom, it looks like it's moving. And craft fur is generally softer than natural bucktail. Even, I mean, I wouldn't use nylon for this application. Okay, so another reason why I use bucktail, and this is a really good reason. You know, one of those scents that you have, like the Berkeley scent, this holds the scent more than hair, because hair has like its own oils, and it kind of repels the scent. So this holds more scent, and this on its own will already catch a lot of fish. Okay, dipping it in some sort of scent also makes it very attractive, or it just increases its attraction. But there's quite a few things that you could do with this. Okay, now one of the things that I like doing is adding soft plastics, and you can use a lot of types of soft plastics with this. Okay, so we have a plastic shrimp here, which we'll talk more of. Grub is one of my favorites. Okay, this paddle tail. Okay, let's get one out of the pack here. Okay, and that's something that you could also put in there. This kind of looks like a squid, and we'll talk more about that later on. See, so all of these you can put to increase bulk, and it's not only just bulk. Okay, it's also action. Okay, the action on this lead head jig with a synthetic bucktail, the action gets magnified. There's all sorts of things that are happening when it's moving. It doesn't take a lot, and it makes it move. So to, like this grub here, all we have to do is just thread that in. And all of these you can adapt to freshwater or saltwater, and it really catches fish everywhere for you. Freshwater, saltwater, you can use this technique. It's a very, very old technique, and you know, with the modern lures and everything, it kind of disappeared somewhat. Now, when you do that, jam it up there. Okay, so when you do that, what happens is that the bucktail actually folds like that. Okay, you have to be kind of very careful when you're threading this, like this one. Okay, it's bunched up there, so what you want to do is just back that off. And the good thing about this is that it doesn't have a collar, so just as long as it's on straight there, like so, okay, and you will have quite a bulky lure. Okay, so when you're going after fish like grouper or spangled emperor snappers or whatnot, this is very, very good, and this works anywhere, you know, just as long as you can reach bottom with this. Okay, this will catch fish. Even if not, even like say you're kayaking around or you're walking around the rocks and then you see some queenfish, this will catch it. And oddly enough, this same type lure, you cast out near the rocks and you'll catch all sorts of rock dwelling species like grouper or snapper with them. So one lure does it all. Okay, now you can fish this on the bottom, okay, mid depth, and on top. One lure. All you have to do is just change things around. So this gives it also a slower sink rate. And with a slower sink rate, as soon as it hits the surface of the water, it already starts working, and it has the potential of catching fish already. Different soft plastics will give it different action. Now, the grub is probably one of the easiest to use. Okay, so put it there. Now, the grub will work as soon as it hits the water. Now, you have this thing here, which is a paddle tail. And with the paddle tail, you rig it the same way. Okay? Goes out there. Like so. This will give it an even slower presentation and or slower fall because of the bulk that it creates, the soft plastic. Now, since it's kind of heavy for its size, you can cast it far with no trouble. It's quite easy. Okay, now the good thing about this is that you can cast it out, reel it in slowly on top, and toothy critters like barracuda, kingfish, if they're close enough, or you could reach them. Again, that's a subject of just changing the size of the jig head. And with this sort of technique, you can fish even slower than the grub because of the bulk that it has. Now again, you have this hair right here, so what happens is that once it's falling, you'll have action in the body, you'll also have action on the tail. Now I like this for casting around structure like rocks, docks, you know, like when I see some rocks protruding out of the water, this is most likely the first thing that I cast because it attracts a lot of bottom fish, and because of the speed, it's just so attractive. They mostly rush out and bite. Okay, I don't have to fish close to structure with this. This is also really good with queenfish. I've caught kings, barracuda, snapper, grouper, you name it. Again, catches a lot of fish. Okay, now here's a very interesting thing, and this is the reason why I actually put fish here. Okay, like a paddle tail, because it looks like a fish. What you could do, okay, if you have real fish, rigging is going to be a bit different, but if you have small real fish, so this is the lip of the fish, you take it, okay, just the lips from the bottom going up. Obviously I I'm fresh out of small fish tonight, so I'm using this. Okay, so you rig it like that. You cast it out, fish it on the bottom, dynamite. Really, really good. Okay, so jig and fish combination, really, really good. Now, the thing is, if you rig this plastic like this, it kind of interferes with the hooking. Okay, and also the fish would just tear this off of the hook, so I don't recommend using this kind of rigging for soft plastic fish. You could, but you know, you tend to lose a lot more. Alright, now same jig, different soft plastic, and even with the bulk of the body of this one, okay, the thing about this is that you could rig it like that with the flat part up or the flat part sideways, and it gives you very different actions. Now with the flat part like that, when you rig it like that, okay, same rigging like that, you just hook it up like so. Okay, cover the body. Okay, so if you rig it like that, what happens is now imagine if this was real bucktail, that actually just gets wrecked. Now the thing is with this, if you do it like this, because it's flat, it has a bit more surface for the water to grab onto, and although it's slow, it has a really nice hopping motion. Again, when you want a faster presentation, this is great. And rig like that. Now if you put it sideways, it has a different action. When you jerk, it actually goes, so this gives you a very fast drop, okay, and it wiggles. And the thing about this is that when this is what I use when I just cast out, let it fall in the bottom and snap it back up. When it snaps up, it goes side, okay, one side or another. Really, really good action. Very different from the first two that we have. Okay, now sometimes you might say that, okay, they're honing in on smaller fish. The thing with this jig or this type of body is that you just cut it off. Okay, so you can cut it off, and what happens is you end up with a smaller or shorter jig, smaller profile lure. Okay, and this is the reason, remember in the first video I said that you have to bind this part securely, because you're doing all this and the concentration of the bites are actually towards that part, and what happens is that at times it gets chewed up. Okay, so you end up with something like that, and what you could do is actually shave it to have, or cut it with the scissors or a knife. Sometimes I just bite it off. I just like a small taper there. It doesn't have to be clean. Fish won't care. Okay, so like that, and then when you put it on, regardless of what position you might choose, you end up with a small stubby lure like so. So again, slightly different action because of the fall rate. The fall rate is going to be quite different with this. Okay, now shallower water, I use shrimp shapes. I love these. This is kind of like very slow presentation. You cast it out, and this is the reason why I chose this jig. jig head shape, because I could cast it out and reel it slow and it'll go like that on the bottom. Okay, so it's kind of like a very good all-around, all presentation type of jig head, and it also drops relative to the size. It actually drops slower than some of the like the circle ones. Okay, so with this, again, just slide in, slide out like that. Make sure that it's straight. And this is probably my most favorite of all of these, because I mean, number one, it's very difficult to find shrimp around here, so I'm sticking with these, especially if you have some scent to spray, or I make my own shrimp oil, so I could just dip all of this in a can or in a bottle with shrimp oil, swish it around, and then use it. And that's it, you know. Cast it out, drop down to the bottom, reel it in slowly, or just cast it out, leave it there. And you know what? This would move around, and surprisingly, I've caught a lot of fish just dead sticking it on the bottom, just like that. Okay? Now, if you have a real shrimp, again, if you have really fresh shrimp or live shrimp, that is dynamite. I know a lot of guys are probably saying like, oh my god, he's mixing jigs with... Guys, this is something I used since I was a kid, and I first saw this in a magazine a long time ago, and wow, you know, it works. So here's the most important part. Now with the shrimp, there's a black spot there. Avoid that like a plague. Okay, between the eyes there's a small black spot. So what I do is, and mind you, shrimp this big, okay, so I go from the bottom straight up, avoiding that black spot. That's their brain. So what I do is, when I know I've done it right, because if you do it right, it's perfectly centered, you break off the horn, and this point replaces the horn. Again, just like that. Okay. Cast it out, let it drop, reel it in really slow. When you think that you're going slow, go slower. And this catches just a lot of fish. Now, another thing with the shrimp is that it doesn't have to be a whole shrimp. Okay, sometimes you just cut a section. You know how shrimps have segments? Cut it up. Okay, take for example like this. Cut a small bit and put that on, just like that. Okay, cast it out again, fish it any way you want. You want to let it drop to the bottom, work it slow. These are very, very effective. Now, here's the thing. You could also do it with squid. With squid, you could do strips. Okay, you could do strips with squid. If you find really tiny ones, you could also use them whole with bigger jigs. And I've caught a lot of fish just doing that. Freshwater, saltwater, you could use pieces of fish, pieces of shrimp, or whatever forage fish, you know, bait that you could find. I've used cheese, okay, and I've caught some fish, not a lot, but I've caught some. Cheese, hot dogs even. So freshwater, you can catch everything from, I mean, I was catching snakeheads with them. You know, with pieces of, believe it or not, earthworms or frogs. So this sort of thing, this is just a very simple lead-headed jig. You can either make it or buy them. They're not expensive. So if you're starting out and you have no confidence on lures, this is a very, very good gateway for you to actually have confidence on lures. And this is just something that I'm so excited about, because this is a very simple, very cheap, very effective fishing technique. Catch fish everywhere with this. And when you do, please post on the comments below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit that like button for more of these videos. It really helps me out, and I really, really appreciate it. Alright, that's it for now, and part 3 coming soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.